So the people that settled that land were Bantu. The second predominant language element in the language of what you call ancient Egyptian, that element is Khoi or San, specifically the San language family. Now, I know there are a lot of different language families and dialects and things like that, such as in America right now, the United States, we all speak English for the most part. But then you have the New York English accent or dialect. Then you have the Boston. You have the Virginia. You have the Louisiana. Even though they're in the South, they speak a different kind of Southern accent or dialect than the Floridians and the Georgians. See, you may all speak English just like the in England itself. Those in England speak a different English dialect than those in Ireland or those in Wales or those in Scotland. So we have to make sure we understand that even though it's the same words and same vocabularies and things, over the years, according to the regions, they change, but they still have the base of the same thing. So that second main element in what you call ancient Egypt was San or Khoi. Being that the San, look this up, do research, I will provide evidence for you. The San were the earliest inhabitants of Somalia, Ethiopia, and Tanzania. And in Tanzania specifically, the Hadza and Sandawi peoples and languages. Now, with this fact already established, I will properly decode the term KM and its relative terms, such as KMT and those that derive from it. Now, first, we have to look at what was the purpose of the land in the north of the Nile, down the Nile River. The purpose of that land still sits today. They have the area where you find all of these tombs and mummies and whatnot. They call it the Valley of the Kings. They even call the book the Book of the Dead, misinterpreted, because they found it where a bunch of dead bodies were. So that means that this place has always put high reverence on the burial of our ancestors and kings and queens. For those reasons, this land was known as the land of the dead. And I will get into that. And it was also known as the land of the iron workers, the people of the iron. Now, we'll start with the iron first. Albert Churchward, in his book, The Arcana of Freemasonry, he states that the, civilization, of course, started in the South. Of course, we all know that the first people were Alpha Rakatu. That's nothing new. They were from the Nile Valley, as he say, Nilotic Negroes, to quote him. But he said that they were workers in iron, and they were called the blacksmiths. The great Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop, in his African Origin of Civilization, of course, states these people as being Shemsu Hor, as some say Shemsu Heru. And they were predecessors of Means, according to Diop, and he called them Negro blacksmiths. So when you do the study, the word Shemsu Hor or Heru and whatever derivative word that comes from that, these people that established what you now call KM, Kemet or Kam or Cam, these people were considered the blacksmiths. Well, then we have to look at where blacksmiths come from. As we know, the word blacksmiths refers to those who work in iron or metals and whatnot, smelting iron. Well, we have to know that these blacksmiths were skilled in iron, and they revered the one who gave them iron, and they also said that the ones who could work that iron were sacred. And since iron smelting began in Central East Africa with Bantu peoples and whatnot, iron and those who worked in it, as I said, were sacred. So therefore, the Bantu were sacred. All right? A lot of people look at it, and I run into this argument a lot, even with our own people, saying that the ancient Egyptians used to call Bantu people, so-called troglodytes and all of these things, and they subjugated them. You still giving yourself a misunderstanding of our story of about maybe 4, 5, 6, 7,000 years, if that. So this is not the case. We're going to precede all of this right here. So get that out of your mind. Now, being that iron and those who worked in it were sacred, one of the earliest known names for, as you call God, but I don't say God, I say power, the power who creates iron. One of the first names of that power was known as Ogum. Ogum. Now, this name Ogum has traveled all throughout Alpha It's even traveled over here. Evidences of it has been found over here after the Ma'afa. Well, why was Ogum so important? Because those who were known as iron workers knew that iron could cut through stone. And this is how some of those great monuments, how all of those great monuments were built, because they were able to make iron tools. See, the Europeans have even called it the Iron Age. But see, the Iron Age that's just according to their timeline. Our people have been smelting iron since iron has been known. Now, as I said, this name Ogum has traveled all throughout Alpha. And if the word Ogum is one of the first words, if not the first word for this power of iron, then obviously the first people, the Kori and San people, they also had a name Ogum. In some dialects, it's pronounced Goam, 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 or it can be pronounced Khom, Goam. Now, with that, I want to give you a little lesson on Bantu rules. As I go, I will interject rules of the Bantu languages. In the Bantu language, the letter G and the letter K, according to the dialect, are often interchanged. And then the letter M, as in mouse, and the letter N, as in nothing, M and N are also interchanged, according to the dialect. So keep that in mind. And as I said, I will be giving you Bantu rules that you can readily research. I will be giving you these rules as the lesson goes. So, review. The Khoi or San named this power of iron Ogum. It was known to them as Goam. Now, the Yoruba people, to them, this name Ogum is known as Ogun or Okun. Ogun or Okun. This is their power of iron, the iron worker, the great iron one. Now, with this in mind, we will take it back to our initial beginning and purpose of this lesson, KM. Those who established the land in the northern Nile, what you call Egypt, Sudan, Somalia, Ethiopia. Those were also people of Ogum. Yet they called him Kuma or Okum. Kuma or Okum. So with that said, unfortunately, the gross misunderstanding of the spelling of KM as Kim or Cam, and the understanding of this to mean black, this has led many of our own scholars to become, like I said, myopic, in that they merely and only assume the word to mean black. And this leads to numerous non-beneficial confirmation biases from even our own great scholars. And this is built on the foundation of a complete misinterpretation of this word. So a lot of times we argue according to misinterpretations without overstandings. So this word KM, to what you call the ancient Egyptians, was known as Kuma or Okum. Now, we will tie that in. Why, as I said, was iron Ogum or Kuma Okum? Why was it so important? This brings us to the second meaning of the word KM. And this second meaning, it is used as a term to mean the spirit of the ancestors that appear to us in dreams. the spirit of the ancestors appeared to us in dreams. This has always been important to us, okay? Because as the great Dr. Marimba Ani put it, we've always been a people that have praised and worshiped and revered ancestor communion, which basically means those who created us, the ancestors, as you call Elohim, is properly called Elohayama. Those who were before us, who created us, which makes sense. All of us came from our ancestors. So the ancestors were extremely important to us. And for those who may not know this, this is the importance in some of these religious doctrines and how they had been incepted. Because if we know the traditions and if we know the teachings, you will also know that in Islam, Rasulullah Muhammad ibn Abdullah, Muhammad, was supposed to have gone to the cave and received his surah from Allah, from Jibril in his dreams. And it also touching into the so-called Christian Bible, the Bible, as I say. If you're familiarized with this story, then you know that Jesus, in the first book of Matthew, Jesus was thought upon by Joseph because an angel came to him in his dreams and told him that his son shall be called Emmanuel, or the light of the world. And so Jesus was then named by Joseph after Joseph awoken from his dreams. So both Islam and Christianity, Christ insanity, both of them showed their direct origins from African traditions, or as I say, traditions qua afarakatu. And now the fact that all of our ancestors, and this is just a side note before I get back to the word and discussion, the fact that all of our ancestors were buried in that land, this made the land our home. This is why the Ma'afa was so dangerous and effective in destroying us as a people, because when you tear a people from what they love and cherish and revere the most, you effectively destroy them completely. Okay, period. Tearing us from our land was and is like tearing a child from the mother and her womb, meaning we get no nourishment and we get no nurturing and we get no love from what we thought and knew as our mother. Okay, so this is why taking us from Afaraka was so effective for the European people. Now back to the word KM in reference to the land. These spirits have always been who we look to as guidance and healing. In the voodoo, the Loa or Loha is considered the spirit of the ancestor who watches over you through life, guides you in directions, shows you the way. Okay, sounds familiar like Jesus. Jesus is the way. That should show you the origin of that book. But anyhow, now I don't know how many of you have watched the series Shaka Zulu, Ushaga KwaZulu properly. But those of you who watch Shaka Zulu, if you recall when the priest of Senzagakona, Kajama, when he spoke about the Isangoma and how the Isangoma had power that was looking over Ushaga. Okay? Now, what is so important about the Isangoma? In isiZulu, the Zulu language, these spirits of our ancestors were known as Goma or Ngoma. In Kiswahili, and unfortunately, I have not done the study to understand exactly what Swahili was before it was called Swahili, because Swahili, to my knowledge, is an Arabic word. Okay? So in Kiswahili, the word that was used for these ancestor spirits of us was known as Koma. So you sense a pattern.